Greetings, Sun Devil Nation, and welcome to this week's installment of Sun Devil Extra. This is the Mountain America Credit Union Sun Devil Radio Network program that each week shines a spotlight on the teams, athletes, coaches, and stories making news in Arizona State Sun Devil athletics. Hi, everybody. I'm Tim Healey, the radio play-by-play voice of Sun Devil football, men's basketball, and baseball. It's my pleasure to serve as your host each week, and I'm glad you're with us. This week, we're going to get you caught up on what has been a busy offseason for Sun Devil football, as two members of head coach Kenny Dillingham's staff will drop by for visits on this week's show. You'll hear from assistant head coach and special teams coordinator Charlie Ragle. You will also hear from running backs coach and former interim head football coach Shaun Aguano. But first, a quick recap of the week in Sun Devil athletics. Men's basketball is back home to host the Pac-12's LA schools this weekend after seeing its four-game conference opening win streak come to an end last Thursday night in an 82-67 loss at Washington. After hosting UCLA this coming Wednesday evening, January 17th, Coach Bobby Hurley's Sun Devils will be back at Desert Financial Arena at high noon this Saturday, January 20th, to host the USC Trojans. Kyle Dodd will join me for the radio broadcast of both of those games, which will air on Arizona Sports 98.7 FM and stream on arizonasports.com as well as the AZ Sports app. Women's basketball, in something of a quirk in the scheduling paradigm, will be on the road in Pac-12 play for the second consecutive weekend, this coming weekend, when the Sun Devils play games at Washington State this Friday evening, January 19th at 8 p.m., before heading over to Seattle to take on the Washington Huskies on Sunday, January 21st at 1 p.m. Coach Natasha Adair's Sun Devils were swept in the state of Oregon this past weekend, although there were a couple of noteworthy performances for ASU, as Jaylen Brown averaged over 15 points in the two games on the road, while sophomore forward Journey Thompson posted a career-high 16 points in the Sun Devils' loss this past Sunday at Oregon State. Jeff Munn will once again brave the chilly weather in the Pacific Northwest, and he'll be with the Sun Devils to bring you radio coverage of the two games at Washington State and Washington this weekend, and you can hear those broadcasts on the Sun Devil Radio Network and KDUS 1060 AM. Sun Devil hockey was on the business end of a home sweep this past weekend as the now 16th ranked Sun Devils were swept by number 14 Cornell. Cornell beating ASU 3-2 in overtime this past Friday night, and then a 4-1 decision on Saturday evening at Mullet Arena. This weekend's bright spot for ASU was the work of backup goalie Gibson Homer, who came in and stopped all 22 Cornell shots that he faced in Saturday's game, coming on in relief of starting goalie TJ Semptimfelder. This weekend, the Sun Devils will continue what will end up being a 10-game homestand at the Mullet, as Arizona State will host Augustana University from South Dakota with games this Friday and Saturday night. The puck will drop at 7 p.m. both evenings, and you can hear all the action on the radio with Tyler Paley and Alex Coyle on the Sun Devil Radio Network and Fox Sports 910 a.m. Broadcast time for each game on Friday and Saturday, 6:30 p.m. Tennis, anyone? Both the Sun Devil men's and the 25th ranked ASU women's tennis teams opened their seasons with a pair of match victories at home last weekend. The Sun Devil women swept both UC Davis and UC San Diego by 7-0 scores to open coach Sheila McInerney's 40th season at Arizona State. Leading the way for ASU was senior Julia Morley. Julia did not lose a game in posting straight sets, 6-love victories in both matches last weekend. Julia and her teammates will host Fresno State this Saturday at 11 a.m. at the Whiteman Tennis Center. As for the Sun Devil men of Coach Matt Hill, they swept their two season opening matches at home, beating NAU and Wichita State by 4-0 scores. The men will host Baylor this coming Thursday, January 18th at the Whiteman Tennis Center. 5 Sun Devil track and field athletes won titles, while 14 posted top 3 finishes in last Friday's season-opening Axum Open at the Walk-Up Sky Dome at Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff. The 5 Sun Devils who entered the winner's circle last Friday: Caleb Simpson won the men's 60-meter dash, Denzel Fagan won the men's 200 meters, Justin Robinson was the winner in the 300 meters, while for the women, Adriana Tatum won the women's 300 meters, while Kiara Lee won the women's triple jump. This weekend, track and field will be competing at the Ted Nelson Invitational, hosted by Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas. Sun Devil Gymnastics placed second to 6th-ranked Denver in their dual meet in Denver this past weekend, although the Sun Devils did post a team score above 196 for the first time this season. Senior Anaya Smith of Arizona State won the vault competition with a score of 9.925, while sophomore Kayla Lee posted that same 9.925 score to win the beam for her first ever career event title at Arizona State. Gymnastics will take part in a tri-meet this coming weekend in Cedar City, Utah, as they will take on the host Southern Utah University Thunderbirds as well as Utah State. And men's golf lost to the University of Arizona, but then bounced back to defeat Southern California in the consolation round of the season-opening Copper Cup competition down in Maricopa this past weekend. ASU's Luke Potter played terrific golf all weekend long and earned a full point in all 4 of his matches for Arizona State. Well, coming up, we'll get you caught up on Sun Devil football's busy offseason as we visit with Arizona State's assistant head coach and special teams coordinator, Charlie Ragle. But first, let's take a timeout. This is Sun Devil Extra coming your way from the Mountain America Credit Union's Sun Devil Radio Network. We continue now with this week's installment of Sun Devil Extra from the Mountain America Credit Union's Sun Devil Radio Network. I'm Tim Healey, the radio play-by-play voice of Sun Devil football, men's basketball, and baseball, and it's my pleasure to serve as your host every week. You know, it seems these days as if college football's off-season is every bit as busy and hectic as the regular season is. Normally, this time of year has always been about recruiting, but now the era of the early signing period, the era of the transfer portal, add just simply another couple of layers to the talent procurement process in college football. And during the Kenny Dillingham era, there are few programs in the country that have made better use of the transfer portal than has Arizona State. On last month's early signing day, on December 20th, early signing day, yet another layer to the player procurement process. ASU signed a class of 29 players, a class that included 16 high school prospects and 13 Division I transfers. The Sun Devils group of transfer portal signees has been ranked among the best in the nation, as high as 4th by Rivals.com, 8th by the website 24/7 Sports. Here with us this week to help update us on all that's been going on in Sun Devil football this offseason is ASU's second-year assistant head coach and special teams coordinator and a former 3-time state championship head coach at Scottsdale's Chaparral High School. Always a pleasure to welcome our friend Charlie Ragle to the show. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, and it's great to be here with you.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well.
Good to see you. This offseason really isn't an offseason, is it, Charlie, anymore in college football? Give us a sense of what it's been like for you and the rest of the staff since the season finale on November 25th.
Well, like you said, it just, it seems like it's kind of just stretched into the new year, right? I think even though, you have that signing date for the players, it's different, right? Because you have the signing date for the high school kids, as you mentioned, and then the portal guys, there's really nothing for them to sign. It's, in fact, when they become a student at the school is when that procurement, if you will, takes place. And so you're constantly, after that signing date, still, your roster's still evolving and growing and changing, and you're still recruiting those guys to make sure that they get here and they get on campus. And we started school, what was it, the 8th? So from the 20th to January 7th, I think Sunday was that team meeting. That stretch over the holidays was still nonstop recruiting.
Wow, that's incredible. We'll take a deep dive into all the recruiting and the transfer portal stuff in just a moment, but I just thought we could take a moment to look back at the 2023 season. Certainly the 3-9 record wasn't the record you were hoping for in year one under Coach Dillingham, but it seems to me that a lot of important building blocks were established in building Coach D's program. What do you feel to have been some of the most significant developments that occurred this past year?
Well, I think if you watched us and you watched us from, kickoff of Southern Utah to the end of Arizona, the one thing that I think, is you can't debate is that our kids came out and they played hard throughout the season. And I think that's a testament to Coach Dillingham and what he's building from a culture standpoint, and having these young men really bought in, because as we know, it's a long season, and it gets longer when those wins are far and few between. And so to be able to keep those kids fighting and competing, I think says a lot about their belief in him and what he's doing for the program. And I think that's the biggest thing that we'll build on is, again, 3 wins is not obviously what we had planned, but there were some bright spots over the course of the season. But I think the top thing is that we really feel like, hey, we've established from inside our locker room the guys that we can build this program on. I think they know where we're going. Now, it's always challenging when you add new players to that, but I do think we have a good core to build on, and I think that I feel really good about where we're heading into this offseason.
Yeah, to amplify your point, it just seemed to me that even in games that were blowout losses, the Utah game in Salt Lake City, home games with Oregon and Arizona, it seemed to me that your kids were still playing hard at the end of those games.
And I think that's exactly right. And I think that's, again, a testament to the kids first and foremost, but also to their belief and Coach Dillingham's belief in the process and the culture that he wants from these young men and he expects and demands. And obviously we're not there yet. It's year one, and we knew we had a challenge on our hands. But I think, to a man, and if you walked across the field and went into our offices and talked to our coaches, I really feel that collectively we really feel good about this offseason and where we're going and with the leadership that we have.
Let's talk about the offseason now, a busy one it has been. If you include D1 transfers, JUCO transfers, and incoming freshmen, as we mentioned, the Sun Devils added 29 new players on the early signing date, which this year was Wednesday, December 20th. Only 7 programs in Division I college football brought in more players in the early signing period. Give us, Charlie, your overview of this group that you signed.
Yeah, I think that we really, I think one of the things that we set back after the season and assessed is, one, we've got to enhance our roster with some depth. I think that we were, to a man, I think we were short in spots, especially in the trenches. And I think when you look at this class, you can see that we really put an emphasis on going out and trying to find some bodies, some big bodies that could help us on the offensive line. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I think the injuries that we sustained through the course of the season were well chronicled. And then trying to get bigger in the interior of the defensive line. I think, we added some nice skill and some linebackers and some guys in the secondary. But I think that the big piece where hopefully it's going to pay off for us is adding these offensive linemen and the size in the interior of the defensive line, which we felt as a collective unit we really needed.
To that point, the Sun Devils added 5 offensive linemen in the early signing period, and 3 of them weigh in excess of 325 pounds. One of them is a former New Mexico Lobo offensive lineman, Issei Matautia, and the other 2 offensive linemen, Joey Sua, who came in from Arkansas. Both Matautia and Sua weigh 346 pounds. And then you brought in a freshman from North Medford, Oregon, Terrell Kim, 328 pounds. Not only did you get some depth, you got some beef there in the O-line.
Size right there. We're going to make sure we need to stack up on that food in the cafeteria because those boys are going to be eating for sure.
I'll tell you. Another position of emphasis in this signing period, Charlie, was in the secondary. 7 defensive backs were signed, 2 of them transferring to Arizona State from the powerhouse Southeastern Conference. LaTerrence Welch, a former LSU Tiger defensive back, is now a Sun Devil, and so too is a former Florida Gator, Kamari Wilson.
And I was just out watching those guys work out. I think that, Again, that was probably an area that we needed some depth. I felt like we had some guys that could help us. Obviously, we lost a couple of guys to graduation, but that was certainly a place where we felt we needed to add some depth as well. And I know Coach Ward and Coach Carrington feel really good about the additions of not just those two, but the rest of the guys that they added as well.
Besides positions, another issue in this recruiting class, establishing a recruiting footprint for ASU. Of the 29 players the Sun Devils signed, 6 of them come from the talent-rich state of Texas. And given the upcoming move to the Big 12, that seems to be huge to be able to continue to recruit in the Lone Star State.
Absolutely. I think with having 2 guys on staff in BC and Rashad Samples, and having their ties to the state of Texas. And as you mentioned, going into the Big 12 where we're going to play games in Texas, it only makes sense that we add to those ties. And again, that's what recruiting is. It's relationships and being able to call on those relationships to help you out. And they certainly have some of those there in Texas. And I think that's a place that we're going to continue to recruit at a high level.
Certainly from day one, since Coach Dillingham took the job at Arizona State in November of 2022, a big emphasis for him and the staff has been building a picket fence around the state of Arizona and keeping the best homegrown talent here in the state at ASU. And you signed 4 players in this recruiting class from the state of Arizona, and all of them rank among the top 52 players in the state. Give us your overview of that group.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say this, that's not enough. I think that obviously with our background and myself and Coach Mons and Coach Aguano and guys, a lot of guys on the staff having ties to Arizona, it is a priority for us to try and fight to keep the best players in the state here. Mm-hmm. And again, obviously coming in where the program is at, that's not always the case when you're losing. We understand that you've got to win, and the lure of winning certainly helps in the recruiting process. But as we continue to move this thing forward, the one thing that I would talk about is that we are never if we don't get kids in the state of Arizona to come to Arizona State, it's never going to be for a lack of effort. And talking about this class or these 4 young men that you talk about, we feel really good about them. Mm-hmm. Again, it's going to be a continued emphasis for our staff to get the best players in the state to stay home and play here at ASU.
You got one player from your old stomping ground, Chaparral High School. Tell us about him.
And Plaz is an extremely
Plaz Johnson, defensive back,
extremely talented young man. Played both ways in high school, receiver and DB, and just did an absolutely amazing job. And I think that when you go out and you recruit other schools and they say, "Hey, coach, like that kid, you got a real one in him." He was by far. I had another coach tell me who had multiple Division I players on his team say to me, "Coach, when we played him that night, he was by far the best player on the field." Wow! And so when you get that unsolicited from rival coaches mm-hmm. Of Chaparral, I think that says something about the talent that Plaz has, and we're certainly excited for him to be joining us.
The other 3 Arizonans, by the way, defensive lineman Ramar Williams from Mesa Eastmark High School, James Giggy from Bradshaw Mountain High School up in Prescott Valley. He's listed as an athlete. Do you have an idea what his future home will be position-wise?
I think it's not yet. I think it's probably too early to tell. We certainly liked him on the defensive side of the ball, but think that he could potentially shift over and play potentially tight end. I think that's the good thing about when you sign guys like that is it's acquiring talent and then get them in here, get them bigger, stronger, faster, and then let's see where they fit. Right. But Ramar's here on campus. He was an early enrollee, so he's here going through workouts as we speak. I just came from one shortly about an hour ago and watched him. So he's getting some work in, and then obviously bringing in Kenyon Floyd, who we really like and think
punter.
Think he's going to be. And the thing about Kenyon is he's a dual kid. He can kick and punt, so we really think that he has some versatility and certainly going to bring some talent to that room.
Kenyon Floyd from Horizon High School in Scottsdale. As you look ahead, Charlie, now obviously the traditional signing day is still coming up in early February. Are there any positional areas that you and the staff will be targeting as you move toward that day, or is it just a matter of tying up all the loose ends and recruiting?
I think that right now best available. As we look at it, I think we've kind of met our needs and where we've gone in this first signing period. Now I think it's really about what are the best options available. Is there something that came open or somebody fell through with the early signing period and falls not into our lap, but hey, is still out there that we could make a run at, and we feel like their talent's too good to pass them up.
And certainly there are going to be players in that transfer portal as well.
100%. So again, as you said, this thing is nonstop.
Next season, of course, will be one of added anticipation. We always eagerly look forward to another new season of college football, but next year, ASU's first year as a member of the Big 12 Conference, and we're looking forward to it. The home schedule will include games with BYU, Utah, Kansas, and UCF, Central Florida, and there will be trips coming up for the Devils to Lubbock, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, a return visit. We were there just 2 years ago, and we're also looking forward to trips to Kansas State and Cincinnati, as well as playing that school down south. What are your thoughts on this moving up to the Big 12 now?
Well, it's interesting. For as long as I've grown up, out here in New Mexico originally, but spent as much time as I have out here, it's, you think of Arizona synonymous, the state of Arizona synonymous with Pac-12 football. Mm-hmm. So I think it's something new, and with that is certainly exciting times. I talked to a buddy of mine who's in the Big 12 coaching and had spent a lot of his career in the Pac-12 and grew up in California himself, and he said, you're really going to like it. He said that just going to the different venues and the pageantry and the involvement from the fans is a little bit different. And he said it really brings an exciting brand of football to go play in. So, hey, look, times change, and I love the Pac-12 and wish it wouldn't have gone the way it did, most certainly, but there's nothing we can do about it. So it's on to the Big 12, and we've got to attack that thing like it's we're here to win it. Yeah. And so I'm excited, and I think our kids and staff are excited as well.
I spent 4 years, many moons ago, as a television sportscaster in Dallas, and I can just tell you from firsthand experience, football is a religion in the state of Texas, and I'm looking forward to those trips to TCU, Texas Tech, Baylor, and Houston. Football's a different beast in that state, and like you said, the pageantry, the fan involvement, I think it's going to be next level in the Big 12.
There's no doubt, and I played at Eastern New Mexico, and so about 75% of our roster was West Texas kids in general. And so I had a roommate that his dad was the head coach and AD at Pampa, Texas, and you drive out. We were both injured, missed a road game, and so he and I went back to his home there in Pampa and watched a game. And he'd drive up to Pampa, and it's a town of 20,000 people, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like, all of a sudden here's this stadium that seats 12,000 people, and I'm like, oh wow, you know what I mean? And that was when it first really dawned to me, like it's different in Texas, and it obviously is, and the emphasis they put on high school football, and then obviously that trickles into college. So it's going to be some exciting times for us, and like I said, I know we're excited about it, and we're really looking forward to getting into that conference.
And we're looking forward to it as well. Looking forward to the start of spring football, just a few weeks away. Here we are in mid-January. Always great to visit with you, Charlie. Happy New Year, my friend.
Always a pleasure. Happy New Year. Thanks for having me.
Sun Devil assistant head coach and special teams coordinator Charlie Ragle, our guest on this segment of Sun Devil Extra. Coming up, we will catch up with the man who served as Arizona State's interim head football coach in 2022, and for the past 5 years has also been and continues to be the Sun Devils running backs coach. We'll visit with our good friend Shaun Aguano in just a moment. This is Sun Devil Extra from the Mountain America Credit Union's Sun Devil Radio Network. Welcome back to our final segment of this week's edition of Sun Devil Extra, the Mountain America Credit Union Sun Devil Radio Network show that shines the spotlight on Arizona State Sun Devil athletics. I'm Tim Healey, the radio voice of the Sun Devils. Glad you're with us this week. As we continue our discussion of Sun Devil football's off-season, we're joined now by a gentleman who will be entering his 6th season in the Sun Devil football program in 2024. He has coached ASU's running backs that entire time, and in 2022 did a terrific job under difficult circumstances, serving as the interim head coach of the Sun Devil football program. We are delighted to welcome Coach Shaun Aguano to the show. Happy New Year, Shaun.
Happy New Year to you. Thank you for having me.
Good to visit with you as always. We mentioned to your colleague Charlie Ragle in the previous segment, there really is no off season in college football anymore. Give us your perspective of what the last month's been like.
Yeah, the last month has been hectic. I know we get a couple of days off for Christmas, but then the transfer portal opens, and so we have to do visits, and so our weekends are taken there. So it's turned into a 365, 24/7 deal here in the college football world.
Give us a sense of what's that like. The transfer portal, there's a clearinghouse, I'm sure, a website where you see all the names. How does that process unfold when you try to determine which of those players you're going to target?
Once they enter the transfer portal and they're cleared, then we go about looking at their film, talking to former coaches, trying to vet that position, and if it's something that is a good fit for us in an area of need, then we go after them.
That sure has changed the dynamic, hasn't it, of what December, January, and early February are like for college football coaches?
Absolutely. Now it's the transfer portal. Usually everything is done with the high school arena in December, transfer portal in the first week of January. So now in the second signing for high school, and the January period is usually looking for the next years. And so that's kind of changed within the last couple of years.
I know there are probably a lot of fans, the purist college football fan, who wish that the transfer portal could go away and we could go back to the way it was in days of old, so to speak. But Shaun, one of the things I've admired about Coach Kenny Dillingham is he's all in on that. He recognizes the portal is here to stay, and doggone it, we're going to make the best use of it. What's your take on that?
I think he's right. And when you can get a transfer portal player that has multiple years, that has been in an experience in the collegiate level, that's almost the same as getting an experienced or a five-star high school that has proven themselves. And so if they have multiple years, it's a good take.
And one interesting dynamic, I think, from Arizona State's perspective is the utilization of the portal in a way that if you don't sign, particularly a homegrown talent from the state of Arizona, if they go somewhere else to start their college career, it doesn't mean they might not eventually make their way back here to finish their career. And we've already seen several examples of that.
Absolutely. And, building those relationships over the years, especially with the high school students starting, in their sophomore, junior, senior years, I think it's more important now because if they do go out of state, you've had that relationship prior, and if they trust you from before, they wanted to go out of state to experience something new, but they've trusted you throughout the process, they always come back knowing that it is open here.
Share with us your overview of the 29-man class that you signed in the early December signing period, 16 freshmen, 13 Division I transfers.
I think it's a good mix. It was areas of need on both sides of the ball, especially in the trenches, that I think we did particularly well. We had a running back come in from a speed factor that we needed, that I thought it was an area of need. And then we added multi-year linebackers and secondary, and so I thought it was a good mix of everybody. And the thing about it, I thought that we got good players that were good character kids that I think is a good fit for Arizona State.
No question. As ASU's running backs coach, I think Coach Aguano has to be thrilled with the two running backs the Sun Devils signed in December. One of them is a former USC Trojan, Ragle Brown, who was a former five-star recruit out of Mater Dei High School in Southern California, considered to be one of the top running backs in the portal. And then incoming freshman Jason Brown comes from O'Dea High School up in Seattle, Washington, a consensus four-star who rushed for over 6,400 yards in his career, breaking the O'Dea High School record previously held by a pretty doggone good running back. You may remember Myles Gaskin at the University of Washington, who went on to the NFL. Talk about those two fellows. They look like two quality backs in your room.
Absolutely. And first the transfer portal, and when we talked about having relationships as well, and Coach Dillingham having relationships, I recruited Ragle when he was back at Edison High School in Stockton his sophomore year before he went to Mater Dei.
Wow.
So we had that connection there as well. He brings experience, he brings explosion. I think he brings that speed that we lacked, I think, a little bit in our backfield. but he's going to be a joy to watch because he's a game changer as well.
And isn't he like a multi-positional guy? You can use him in the slot or even flank him out wide.
Absolutely, and you know, he's a like you said, multi-utilization guy, and that we can hand fly sweeps. He can be in the passing game, also come from behind from under center. So he's somebody that we're excited about.
And Jason Brown from Seattle, boy, he's gotten a lot of accolades after the conclusion of the season.
Absolutely, and Jason's a great kid. We got on him late. He was looking at a couple of other schools. We got on him late, built that relationship with him and his family. When he came out and loved the school when he came out on a visit. But I like the way he goes about his business. Very mature, great kid, great athlete. That I think brings a high level of football intelligence to that room as well.
I think it's always important to add at least one quarterback in every recruiting cycle, and in the early December signing period, the Sun Devils got themselves a good one from the transfer portal, former Michigan State Spartan Sam Levitt, who was a one-time Gatorade Oregon High School Player of the Year up in West Lynn, Oregon, not far from Corvallis. He's a good get for your program.
Very good athlete. I think a great head on his shoulders, and he's going to bring some competition to that room for sure.
Now, another development, I think, in the early signing period, the Sun Devils' establishment of a potential Polynesian pipeline. And Coach Aguano is a native of the state of Hawaii. I'm sure pretty excited about that. 7 members, nearly a quarter of this signing period's signees, if you will, are players who share a connection with the Polynesian community. Talk about that. How did that come about? And boy, there are some really, really good players out on the islands.
Absolutely, and Coach Sanga has done an incredible job, just from a position coach and what he has done with that room. But we've built relationships going back to the islands. I probably know 99% of all of the coaches there. Coach Sanga and I double teamed the islands and Utah, where after COVID, a lot of the Islanders moved to play football, as well as in the California region. And so I think that was great for us to get that pipeline going back. But Coach Sanga has done an incredible job with his position and recruiting the islands.
We talked a little bit with Coach Ragle in the previous segment about the Sun Devils recruiting footprint and how it has expanded. Charlie talked a lot about how you've continue to make gains in the state of Texas with 6 signees there, but you also had some success in the Pacific Northwest. We talked about Jason Brown, and talk about the tight end that you signed, the '1 rated player in the state of Oregon.
Absolutely, and I think going back to the days, a lot of our Coach Mons and Coach Ragle, as well as some of our coaching staff, had relationships prior from the high school region, working with a lot of these coaches, and so those calls are easier. Because we've worked with them in all-star games throughout the past decade, and so those relationships are there, and it's now coming through fruition that we're getting some of the top players in those states. That
'1 tight end is Jaden. Is it Fortier or Fortier?
I think it is. I don't want to make that mistake. Yeah.
He comes from the Portland suburb of Tualatin, and really stayed constant and committed to his word to come to ASU.
Absolutely, and there were a bunch of schools coming after him at the end, and I thought Coach Mons did an incredible job solidifying that relationship with his family, and he's going to be a force to be reckoned with here.
Coach Ragle also discussed with us the 4 Arizona signees in this early class, and that's been such an emphasis with this staff from day one, with yourself, Coach Mons, Coach Ragle, all being successful former high school coaches here in the state of Arizona to keep the homegrown talent home.
Absolutely, and we're shaking every bush out there and making sure that we build those relationships and keep building those relationships with the high school coaches. We know we have to win and to keep the upper echelon of athletes. However, we see a lot of them coming back. And so those are relationships that we've built, and so we have to understand that process going forward. But I'm excited for ASU and the athletes that are here in the state that I think will be huge for us in the next coming years.
Now, with the traditional February signing day a couple of weeks away, what will be some positional areas of emphasis moving forward, do you think?
I think that there are spots for summer graduates that, again, key positions, offensive, defensive line, especially younger ones that we can develop, and then game changers that have not signed. And so there will be a couple of those players, but I don't think we are going to just bring in any player. They have to be ones that we think are game changers.
And hopefully they will be game changers in the Big 12 Conference as ASU moves to a new conference home starting this coming 2024 season. What excites you most about the upcoming move to the Big 12?
You know, seeing different stadiums, playing in different states, just seeing a different level of competition. We've been in the Pac-12. I've seen it for 6 years now, and so it is exciting to see something new.
Yeah, for sure. And the state of Texas, we talked with Charlie about this. Football's a religion there, and now you got 4 schools in the state of Texas that are part of the Big 12. I'm looking forward to those trips to Lubbock and Fort Worth, Houston, and Baylor, Waco, Texas.
Absolutely, and it gives us a footprint to go and recruit, knowing that we'll play in front of their families. And so, and I had one with Kyson Brown from Lancaster in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and so he's excited to play in front of his family. So the more and more we get accustomed to recruiting Texas, I think that'll be a huge plus for us.
Kyson he didn't get a lot of opportunities, but he showed sparks when he did. He's an exciting talent. I'm anxious to see him develop.
He's going to be a good one.
We're anxious to see the Sun Devil team develop under the leadership of Coach Kenny Dillingham and assistants like our good friend, Coach Shaun Aguano. Shaun, great to see you. Happy New Year and all the best to you, my friend.
I appreciate it. Same to you guys.
And that'll do it for this week's installment of Sun Devil Extra. We thank you so much for joining us. A couple of thank yous before we leave today. Thanks to our executive producer, Arizona State Senior Associate Athletic Director Doug Tamaro. And thanks as well to Sean Crespin of the Sun Devil Radio Network, our engineer-producer each week. We will be back next week with another edition of Sun Devil Extra, and we hope you'll make plans to visit with us. Till then, I'm Tim Healey. Thanks for watching. So long, everybody.